Today's show is the second episode in the series on money, recognizing and removing any limiting beliefs you may have around money, learning how to put your money to work for you, and learning not just how to create wealth, but how to create an abundantly blessed life. On today's show, I am joined by a woman who at a very young age stepped away from her 9-to-5 and built a beautifully rich, relaxing, and fun life for herself and her family. She'll share just how she did it and how you can do it too. It's coming up next. Stay with me. Welcome to Shift or Get Off the Pot, the podcast that helps you get out of your head and into action so you can make your dreams your reality. Let's get to it. Welcome to the show today. This is the second episode in the series that we are doing on money and creating abundance in your life and learning how to really put your money to work for you. And my guest today is someone who knows quite a bit about that because she has created a lifestyle for herself and her family that most people only dream about. She finally got fed up with the grind of the 9-to-5, and she opted to make some changes. But it was then that she realized she had quite a few limiting beliefs around money. So she went to work internally on her mindset, and then she took the inspired action necessary to make some changes. And she threw herself a retirement party, get this, at the age of 34. You heard that correct. Just 34 years old. That's absolutely incredible. She's obviously learned how to shatter those limiting beliefs and create an abundantly blessed lifestyle. And she now hosts a show called the Manifestation and Money Podcast, where she shares some of the steps that she took to actually create this lifestyle for herself and her family. And she is joining us here today to share just how she did it. Welcome, Jen Schulz.
Thank you, Kim. I'm so pumped to be here with you today.
Yeah, I'm just in learning more about your journey and what you have been able to accomplish is incredible, because there's a lot of people that talk about just being fed up. I'm done with the 9-to-5 grind. I want to make some changes here. And then they talk about it, they put it on their vision board, but there's no real effort that goes into it. Or there might be a few steps forward, but then as soon as some things just don't go the right way, it's like pull back, and it's easier to slip back. And it is slipping back into that comfortable space. So I'd love to know, what was it for you? First of all, what was the impetus that just said, I'm done? Because I think you really have to have a very strong reason to just kind of push yourself forward.
Yeah, well, for me, I grew up, I was a people pleaser. I went to school, I got good grades, I did what the teacher told me, I graduated, I went and got a job with a pension, and then you're just supposed to grind it out till retirement, right? Like, that's just what society has sold to us. And I hated it. I would be in that environment every day, and not just emulating the way I was feeling. Everybody around me was complaining. Like you said, they don't want to be doing the thing that they've signed up to do, but instead of doing something about it, they're just complaining about it to each other, which is not solving anything. And for me, I was like, I can't be in this environment where there's all this negative talk. Nobody here is happy. And then on top of that, somebody else was in control of my schedule. Somebody else was in control of my paycheck. And I was like, this is no fun. And I read a book by Jack Canfield called The Success Principles. And the very first chapter in there is the event plus your response equals your outcome. And I'm like, well, my event is my job. My response is me showing up to it every day. And therefore, I'm getting the same outcome every day. So if I want different results, I have to change something here. So that's when I started really going down a deep diving path of what else is there out there for me? What could I be doing? Because I knew if I signed up for another job, even if I had more enjoyment in it, I was still beholden to somebody else's schedule. I was still building somebody else's dream, right? And so that's where I had to turn inward and say, what do I want? What is my dream? What is something I can build? And what is the lifestyle I want? And how can I find the income streams to support that lifestyle? Not what is the income stream I can find. And then what's left of me is what's creating the lifestyle.
That's okay. That's a perfect point right there, because so often it's backwards. It's okay, let me go out and find the next job that pays more so that I can cover my expenses. And then hopefully I have a little bit left over that maybe I can start managing or investing in such, instead of it's a backwards way of thinking it. And I think that it's a learned behavior, right? It's something that we've been taught, like you said, right in the beginning, that it was just as you go to school, then you go get the good job, and then you keep hopefully going up the ladder until you make more and more. And then eventually you just retire, and then you retire with what? What do you have? Unless you've been smart and you've learned how to invest and you've learned how to put your money to work for you, you just kind of go through just this process that we've all learned. But I think a lot of people, especially now with the internet and stuff, there's so many opportunities out there to change your lifestyle, to make money. But even with all those opportunities, I think we still slip into that backward way of thinking. And like you just talked about, really, you start to say, okay, well, wait a minute. If I want to make more money, do I get a different job? Or how do I change this and start from what do I really want? And putting ourselves first and what it is that we want. So when you did that, and I love that you brought up his book, because that's a great book. It's one of the very first books that I read on success when I was in sales. And it's a great book, and I love Jack Canfield. But what was the thing that you think that maybe it was like, okay, you know what? There's a couple little steps here that I need to start taking. Was there a process that you implemented? Was it a matter of just saying, okay, I'm going to write down my goals and focus on those and become intentional? Or was it like, was there something that kind of said, I got to do this no matter what?
I think it was kind of like, when you're building a snowball, it starts off like teeny tiny little flakes together. Then you start rolling the ball and it gets bigger and bigger. I really think it was like that. It started off with just small, with just, what do I want? What are the options out there? And my podcast touches on manifestation and money, because I feel like I fell into manifestation and starting to attract the things that I needed in my life before I even knew what manifestation was. So that Jack Canfield book, somebody had said, oh, hey, I think you need to read this, because they heard me saying, like, I got to shift this. I got to do something different. And they're like, here, this book will help you out. Then somebody else also gifted me Robert Kiyosaki's Think and Grow Rich, or not Think and Grow Rich, sorry, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
So that book, so I was like, okay, somebody has in rapid succession given me 2 books to read. So I read them, and both of those books catalyst like me into the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, into realizing that I don't have to trade my time for dollars. Holy smokes. When you realize that you don't have to go work for somebody else and trade your time to get a paycheck, the world opens up for you.
Yeah.
And during that Jack Canfield book, there's so many good exercises in that book. Like, that book was a game changer for me. I used to read it annually, and every time I would just glean new information out of it. But the one exercise that stood out for me right away was, what do I want to be, do, have exercise? So I filled out a sheet of paper, tucked it in that book. I'm like, that was really inspiring. And then a year later, when I was packing up my house to move, I found this piece of paper because it fell back out of the book. Everything on my list had come true.
Wow.
I was like, holy smokes. And this is as I'm starting to look into house hacking real estate to replace my job. And so that's when I started paying attention to manifestation and how you have to so clearly set the intention for what you want. And then the pathway starts lining up to what you want. So that could be money, that could be health, that could be whatever. But I think I accidentally fell onto that path during my self-discovery path of just allowing myself to really question, what do I want? And then taking the steps as they appeared in front of me.
Yeah. A couple of points that you brought up there. One was the self-discovery path. And that is so important because I think oftentimes we go through just the series of steps. We have to do this, do this, do this, do this, take care of things. And basically it's just like working to cover all the expenses. And there's not enough time in the day, or we don't allow ourselves enough time in the day is probably a better way to say it, because we can always find, even if it's 15 minutes, there's got to be 15 minutes somewhere. Getting up earlier, going to bed 15 minutes later, but finding that where you can take the time to just say, okay, what is it? What are the opportunities? But also, you paid attention. You were getting those nudges, like when you were opening yourself up to those other possibilities, and then people are giving you books, and you paid attention to that, because a lot of times, things like that happen. We just kind of pass over them. We don't pay attention to it. So it's really, and I think part of that is because you were intentional at that stage.
Mm-hmm.
You were intentional about the fact that you were ready to change and make some differences in your life that would obviously start really serving you on a much higher level. But then also, you just mentioned that it was really the self-discovery and, yes, being intentional, but then also taking the action. Like you did those exercises. How many times have we picked up books? And I've done this. I've been guilty of this plenty of times. There's books, there's workbooks and all that stuff. And I kind of look at it and I'll do a little bit of it half-heartedly, but I don't do and really get into it and do the steps. And I think that's important because there's a lot of tools out here in the world that can help us on our journey towards creating what it is that we want and the lifestyle that we want. But if we don't put in the effort, then we're just wasting our time.
I totally agree with that. Like your whole podcast here, Shift or Get Off the Pot, it would have been way easier for me to still be at that job, still having those same conversations that people were grumbling, because that was easy. And easy is almost comforting, even in the sense that I didn't like it. It was still comfortable just because we're creatures of habit. So how can you get yourself to, like, oftentimes it's like you get to that point where I didn't know what I wanted yet, but I knew what I didn't want. So that was my inspiration to be like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but it's going to be something different. So yes, as those opportunities show up, say yes to them. And those exercises in books, if you feel like, this isn't for me, pay attention, because that is probably the exercise you really should be doing. That's probably your brain just shutting down, being like, nope, I don't want to go there. I'm not ready to tackle that limiting belief or that blind spot I have. So it's easier to put the book away, tackle it head on and see where it takes you, right? Start treating it like, for me in manifestation, I just play along with it like a fun experiment, even to this day. And it's still showing up in big time in my life. So treat the exercises. It's going to cost you a little bit of time at the end of the day. Journal it out, right? But it can be life-changing, the result of those exercises.
That's a great point, because exactly right. It's usually the ones that you resist the most and say, oh, I don't have time for them. Whatever it is, we find excuses, procrastinate, or we just say, I don't really need that. And the reality is even sometimes things that we look at them and we think, it's so simple. Come on, I already know this stuff. And that's, I think a lot of it is, I already know this. I got it. And you're right. Those are the ones that can absolutely be life-changing, because those are the ones that cause us to really start questioning some of our beliefs and start stretching ourselves. And you never know where it's going to take you. Sometimes these questions seem so simple that I've looked at in a ton of different workbooks, and I'm like, that's so easy. But at the same time, when you start putting in the effort, it's a trigger, and it leads to something else and something else and something else, where all of a sudden you start to go on a journey of self-discovery, and you start to say, wait a minute, where did I first hear that? Why does that affect me like that? Why is it that for me, for a long time, it was, and in sales, I was hitting this financial ceiling. I was at this set point, no matter what I did, no matter how much commission I made, at the end of the month, I always had the same thing, because something would happen that would drain those resources. And I'd be like, hey, I'm getting ahead. Oh my gosh, I finally got, like 60,000 saved, right? And I can now start doing something with it. And then all of a sudden it'd be like major something, car issue, house issue, something. And it'd be like, oh my God, I'm back down to 30,000 saved. It was like, why was I always hitting it? And then when you look at that, you have to go, that's not an outside thing. Yes, it seems outside, and we can always look outside and say, well, it's not my fault that the pipe burst, or it's not. The bottom line is, when it starts to become repetitive, You have to look at it,
Yeah.
because that, I believe, is the universe, is God, is spirit, is your own spirit saying, hello, you've
Mhm.
asked for some changes here. You got to start taking a look at what's happened. And when you do that, then it leads you back to maybe some kind of thought or memory or a story that you go, oh my God, this happened. My parents always did this. This is the same thing that happened to them. And then you get to break it, right? You get to make a choice, right? Like you made a choice. I'm done with this. I don't want to do this 9 to 5 anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so amazing how you realize when you break through a limiting belief that it's oftentimes it's somebody else's limiting belief that we've been packing around.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
how, like, they're not even our own. We're carrying around somebody else's baggage, and it's heavy, and it's dictating our life, when we can just go, wait a minute, I don't want to believe that anymore. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to start doing something differently. There's so much power in that.
There's a lot of power in that, but there's 2 things that really need to happen. First, it's yes, understanding and paying attention mentally and taking a look at, okay, what memories are coming up for me, those triggers and such. And then the second part of that, which I think is often overlooked, is getting to work, is taking the action necessary. Like you already said, doing some of the work on those workbooks and answering the questions and doing a deep dive. That's one aspect. But then you have to go and say, okay, practically, how do I apply this now? Practically, because I hear a lot of times people will say to me, it's on my vision board. Vision boards, I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's like, well, the vision, it's not that the affirmation isn't working. It's not that the vision isn't working. It's that it's to help set a trigger in your mind to pay attention to what's coming up for you. Is it a belief? Is it a habit that you have to change? If you choose to change it, we all have free will. We all have a choice. And then what am I going to do about this? And then opening yourself up to, okay, what could be the steps possible? Like, what's the next step? So for you, what was your next step? When you started doing these worksheets, when you started reading the books, where was it that you said, okay, you know what? How else can I make money? Which I love the way you did this. How can I make money to support my lifestyle? How can I support my lifestyle? What can I do? Because then you're opening yourself up to all sorts of possibilities.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is a fun place to play from. And when you look at it from a manifestation space, which I love to play in, and you think back to like The Secret. I love The Secret, but they didn't talk about the action piece. It's like you have to lean into the what do I want? And the pathway is going to start lighting up for you. It's like the whole, I want to win the lottery, but if you never buy a lottery ticket, how are you actually going to win the flipping lottery, right? Like realistically, your life is the same way. So for me, it was building those vision boards. And looking back now, it was all stuff at first. It was all stuff that I wanted. But now when I still do vision boards, and it's not about the stuff on the board, that stuff, it always plays out. It always plays out, but it's you believing that you can have the stuff. It's having that stuff on the board that is so connected to your soul and what you want that it's easy to say yes to the action steps. So for me, sitting at that desk job that I hated and was like soul sucking, that's just the way it felt to me. I went home at the end of the day, I felt like I had no energy left. But once I decided to take that mental shift of I am going to build something different for myself so I can leave this job, my husband and I started house hacking real estate. So we were buying real estate, living in one unit, renting out the other unit, and slowly accumulating properties that way, bite-sized pieces. I was working a full-time job, plus we were renovating houses on our own in the evening. I had so much energy because I was inspired. The things on my vision board were things that I wanted. It was the lifestyle I wanted. It wasn't, sure, it was things like the cars and stuff like that, but I was so inspired by that end goal that it was easy to say yes to the action steps. So I think that if you are not inspired by what you say you want, you need to check in and ask yourself, is this truly what I want? Or again, is it just somebody else's expectation of what they think I should want? Or is it an adapted society belief of what I think I should want? Like, journal it out for yourself. Nobody has to see what you want. Maybe you want things that you're embarrassed to tell people about because you're worried that they're going to judge you. but really connect with what you want. And then the action steps and the pieces are going to feel easier to say yes to. And if you're a person that feels like this next step I want to take is big and scary, break it down. Break it down so you have to say yes to it every day. Like, make the steps feel like they're micro steps, and every day take a micro step. And you're going to look back at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the year, and you're going to go, holy smokes, just by taking little action every day, I did the thing that I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it might take a bit longer, but you're in action, right? Like, we have to make it easy for ourselves to get into action.
Well, nothing happens without that action.
No.
Nothing. And that's action. That's what gives us the clarity. So often it's, if I was clear, I would do this. I did this for a long time. It's like, if I knew exactly how to do this, and it was always about, if I knew exactly how to do this, I mean, I would just get going. I mean, I'm a hard worker. I could do this. I put in the effort, but I don't really know the steps. And it was like, wait a minute, that's putting the cart before the horse. And you have to turn that around, flip that script and say, okay, wait a minute. I'm going to start getting into action, because the more that you start taking action, even if it's those baby steps, like you said, it does create that clarity, and it starts to open the doors to other opportunities that you may not have seen otherwise that can support that goal or that vision that you have for yourself. The other thing is that we often hear about having a big, hairy, scary goal that scares you, that kind of stretches you. And the one thing that I see that doesn't happen, though, and isn't as talked about, is that it's great to have that. And even if you don't want to share it with other people, fine. I often tell people, don't share your goals with other people unless you have someone you really trust, right? A partner, an accountability partner, a coach, someone like that really has your back. Because if we don't fully yet believe it in our own psyche, if we can't buy into it yet, and we're sharing it with people that maybe aren't as supportive that we might think are, if we haven't fully bought into it, we're going to start getting energetically roadblocks that come up, and it's going to be easier to pull back and say, see, I knew that wasn't going to work. Oh, I know that. See, it's kind of a dumb idea. Like, even though we might say outwardly, no, I can do this, I can do it. But our inside voice is going, right, come on, that's BS. You've never made more than $100,000 a year. What do you think, you're going to make $1 million this year? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's always that self-talk. So it's like, I caution people to do what you said, like, write it out only for your own, if it's just for your own self first, just so you can start playing in it. But then also the second part of that is, if it's a big thing that almost seems impossible, it's like, well, wait a minute, let me see, is there a possibility? Can I break that down in a way that maybe I can take just one little step forward today? And what might that be? And that I think is a game changer in helping us start getting on the path of realizing our dreams.
Yeah, because every little step in action that you take, your confidence gets a bit better.
Yes.
Next step, confidence. Next step, confidence. And to your point, I used to call myself a closet manifester, because yes, all my stuff was tucked into books, or it was tucked into my underwear drawer. Like, because nobody needed to see that. And now I'm confident in it. So yes, I've got my goal posters and stuff on my walls and stuff posted all over my house. But just because I have the confidence to back it and say, yes, this is what I want to go for.
Yeah.
Before, I kept all that stuff to myself, because that's all that mattered. I had to believe it.
Yeah. And you're boosting your own belief. And when you do that, those baby steps, you're absolutely right. It creates that confidence, and that starts to, like the snowball analogy you made earlier, it starts to build that momentum, and momentum is an absolute game changer. Yeah. It completely shifts everything, really. And it's also when, and this is something I think I'm pretty sure it's Napoleon Hill that says it in Think and Grow Rich, that once, and he refers it to riches, but it can be in other areas of your life too. But that once they start to flow so fast, it's like the floodgates were open, and you wonder, where the heck were they? Like, where were they hiding all the time? And it's like, they've always been there, but it's just a matter of, they've been over here, right? And we've been over here, and it's just kind of getting in sync with them and aligning ourselves. And that comes through that belief. It truly comes I think it comes through the belief and the willingness to allow ourselves to dream, and to dream bigger than what we've been taught.
Yes. And that you are allowed to believe bigger than you are taught, that you deserve to have these big dreams. Like, I think even for me, when I go and manifest something big, I duck and turtle afterwards and I go, whoa, like I manifested a lake property just 7 days into the year that I wanted it. And I was like, holy smokes, that played out so fast. I got what I wanted. Okay, thank you. And I just like pulled back for the rest of the year because I felt like I'd asked for enough. And I was like, wait a minute, who says I can't ask for more because I want to be able to support causes I'm drawn to? Who says I can't keep asking to give to the greater good, right?
Right.
So that belief that we deserve it and we can ask for big things and that's okay.
Yeah, it's allowing ourselves, the word you used, allowing ourselves to actually dream and the willingness to say, oh, okay, is it possible? And let me allow myself to play in what I call it the field of possibilities. My dad used to tell me the story of a pro golfer named Fuzzy Zeller, and he was on this, he was on some TV or radio interview one time, and they were asking him about, now that you're becoming this, great golfer and everything, and you're winning all these huge purses, what do you feel about like living in those homes and spending your money the way that you're spending it? And he said, I make no apologies for that. Number one, I have a charity that I'm involved in, but let's face it, that house is there and somebody has to live in that house. Somebody has to fly first class. Otherwise, there wouldn't be first class. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's such a good point, because the reality is, yes, somebody does. Somebody gets to do that. So why shouldn't it be me?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that.
Oh, I know. Every time I would look around, I remember walking through the neighborhood that he lived in, and I'd be like, wow, these are beautiful homes and stuff. And you're absolutely right. It's like, it's okay if that's something that you want. I always tell people, go there, take a picture in front of, if it's a client that you want to land, go and take a picture of yourself standing in front of there with acting as if you just got the signed contract. If it's a home that you want, if it's similar, go stand in front of it and take a picture of yourself there. If it helps you to start creating more of that vision for yourself, which leads to the believability, the more that you stay in it. I want to go back on this point. I want to go back to something you brought up earlier that you read and that Jack Canfield had said, and that is about the be, do, have model. Because there's a whole be, do, have model of success where most of the time we look at it as like, when I have this, I'll be able to do the things that I want to do. Where if we flip that, and this is what we're really talking about in creating an abundant lifestyle and manifesting what you truly want. It's the be principle first. You have to be the person that already thinks like the individual that is aligned with the things that you truly want. And so it's flipping the way in which we approach it.
Yeah. And you know what I did for that? Because now you're having me flash back to when I was still at that job. I would come home on my lunch break and I would take a cup of coffee and I would sit out on my deck in the sunshine. And I would just imagine if I wasn't at work right now, I would be out here, I would be playing in the garden, and I would journal out what my life would look like. But I was sitting out there in the sun and I was feeling the warm sun on my face. I was drinking my warm coffee and I was embodying, sure, I'm doing it right now, but I was imagining as if that was my all day, every day, right? So start finding the little ways that you can add in those pieces to your life now so that you're experiencing them. And oftentimes, if it's something that you want, it's really a feeling that comes from it. That is what our body is craving. So if you know you want, say, to free up more time in your schedule to spend time with the people you love, start making a phone call once a week to that person you want to reach out to, or start finding little ways to add that into your life now and watch the snowball appear just from that alone.
Yeah, exactly. Early on, when I wanted to start my business, leave sales and start my business because I wanted to be home with my kids. I was a single mom. I wanted to be present to my kids. And I thought, I can do this work from home. Why do I have to go into the office? I'm in an outside sales position, all this. But it's not what the company wanted. And so I thought, well, how do I do this? And my sister's a life coach. And she said, just that, it's like, look at, let's just pretend, what would your day be like, when you got up in the morning? And I would go over and visit her every once in a while just to kind of go, oh, I just need a breather. I just need to sit here and just kind of get outside and visualize what it would be like. And I would walk myself just like that. I would walk myself through my day from the time I opened my eyes, what would it be like? And I'd be like, well, I'd be sitting in my bed journaling. That's what I would want to do. And I would be taking my time to ease into the day. I'd read a little bit in a book, and then I would start my day. I wouldn't just hop out of bed. Oh my gosh, I have to take a shower. I got to get ready. Blah, 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 go to, I instead just thought, I want to ease into my day, and I don't want to feel like I have to get up at 6 o'clock to do this. I want to get up when I get up. And then I started doing, okay, what would it feel like if I had the clients that I enjoyed working with? Not so much the clients that paid me big bucks, but who were the clients that I enjoyed working with, that I had a great relationship with? And also, they did pay me the big bucks for what I was doing and the service and the value that I could bring. And I just started getting into, just like that, what you said, the energy of it. I started bringing in the feeling, because we're emotional beings, and it is the feeling that creates. Neville Goddard has a book, Your Feeling is I can't remember what it is, the feeling is the reason or something, but feeling is the secret. And it is because that's the language of our soul. And it is through the feeling in which we start to create. And so the more that I could start getting in touch with that, bam, it was within, I would say, probably 8 months that I said, okay, I'm making the decision now. I had one client that I started with. And then right after that, I got another client. And that's what allowed me to say, okay, now I'm going to make the transition and start my own business. But in that, I want to make it really clear that I didn't just put the vision on there and say, this is what I want to do. Okay, I'm making a mad exit tomorrow. I wanted to make sure that I had the finances backing me to be able to make that exit, instead of just saying, whatever, I'm just going to go do it and the universe is going to support me. Yes, that is true, but that comes through us taking the action steps too. And for me, it was, I really want this. Maybe I need to start making some calls and letting people know I'm thinking about going out on my own. What would you think if? And you know what I mean? And that's the action piece of it that you mentioned earlier. Like in The Secret, they didn't bring that up. There is another component to it, and you do have to take that action.
Yeah. And the way I look at that is, if we are truly co-creating with the universe and we're putting out there, this is the thing I want, if we're not taking any action steps towards it, we're saying, I don't actually want the thing because I'm not putting in any effort to go get the thing. Whereas if you put out the vision of the thing you want and you're taking the steps towards it, beautiful synchronicities start showing up, beautiful opportunities start showing up, and pathways and relationships and connections just come into your life that you can say yes to and take action on them. But if you're just blindly going, yeah, I want to win the lottery, and just holding out on somebody else buying you that ticket, you're probably not going to get what you want.
Yeah, that's true. But you're either maybe not, maybe it's not something that you really want. Maybe it is somebody else's vision for you and an expectation. Or it could be that, and there's a fine line here, I think, it could be that you don't really believe that it's possible for you to achieve. Mm-hmm. And you may not feel that you're worthy of achieving it. And again, that goes back to those limiting beliefs. So see, I mean, we started the show with you talking about, look, I didn't want to do the 9 to 5. And all of a sudden I was gifted these books and I started going, okay, I need to start taking a look at this and paying attention to it. And then you started getting really intentional and started taking the steps necessary and started taking the action steps necessary. But there are a lot of people that will say, well, I don't want to do the 9 to 5 grind either. Or I'm trying to build a business, but it's really hard and I don't like this anymore. I don't want to do it. It's easier to just blah, 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 blah. So then it comes back to, okay, at what point do you say, is it that I don't want it and I need to reevaluate that, reassess what I thought I wanted? Or is it that perhaps I don't really believe it's possible for me?
Yeah, that. And if I could add a third one to that, because those are both really valid, but maybe you just need an accountability buddy or somebody just to inspire you. Maybe you need to have a podcast in your back pocket too that you're listening to religiously, just to keep that little flame going. Just here, there's other, say if we're talking about in the space of money, there's other entrepreneurs out there, they're taking the action. Because oftentimes trying to move away from, say, the job world into an employee world, you are surrounded by other employees. You're not surrounded by entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You need to find that new pool of people who are doing the thing that you want to do to help keep igniting your flame, because you're not going to find the inspiration from the place you came from. You need to start finding your new tribe or finding your new people. And I think, yes, for me, it was books, but in this day and age with audiobooks and podcasts at your fingertips, I'm like, if I went back to my 20s now, like what a different world it could be, because I feel like things would come together faster, because I feel like I would feel like I had found my community faster.
Yeah. Yeah. It is important to surround yourself with the people that are where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're talking manifestation and money, surrounding yourself with the people that are financially where you want to be as well, and start stretching yourself into that, and inserting yourself into the places where those conversations are taking place too. Because, if you don't know how to really work with your money, or how to invest or put your money to work for you, you're the only one that's the cause of that. Like, you have the ability to actually make some changes and to learn that. I had a friend of mine on the podcast, a couple of months ago. She's a CPA, and she's actually going to be coming on in this series. She's going to be, I think, one of the last episodes that we do in this series. And it's really talking about understanding your money and being responsible. You've got a 401k. Okay, do you know that your 401k, you can choose where some of those investments are going, and it's a matter of looking at that. And a lot of people don't even bother with that, which are little simple things, or even a high yield savings account. I mean, okay, there's little simple things that you can do. Just like, again, we're going back to, what are the baby steps that you can take if you have this big goal? Is there something you can do in just a little shift? If it's a matter of saying, you know what, I could maybe cut out getting this every month, or and scale back a little bit, or maybe I need to look at my account and say, wow, how much am I spending on stuff that I really don't use? How many monthly memberships do I have that I haven't used in, a year? Like little tiny baby steps, that there are concrete things that we can do. One thing you brought up a moment ago was that you were able to manifest a lake house very quickly. Mm-hmm. And it was like, wow, I was able to do that. For people that might be out there listening, that may say, oh, that's great. Well, yeah, I mean, I could do that too if I had the money to pay for the down payment of it. I mean, come on, that'd be so easy, because I know that is the way a lot of people think. Even though they don't want to, they may not mean to think that way. It may be like, okay, I know that, stop that, push that aside. I have to take the steps. And she clearly did that to get to that point. But I think that's an easy thing to come back with, and to say, well, you had the money. Of course you did that.
Well, that's the irony of that story. Is the year before, I was in the summertime, I was like, I want a lake property. We went to the bank, and the bank said, sorry, we're not going to finance you because you own all these other properties. Like, we're just not comfortable. You're high risk to us. So that was my lake property dream. The way I saw it, squashed. So then it was the dead of winter, and I was like, no, I am the manifestation girl here. I want my lake property. So it was November, and I was like, well, I guess I'm going to go put an ad on like Facebook Marketplace and Kijiji. And so I started putting all these ads out saying, I want to buy a lake property. But the bank's not going to give me money to buy it. So basically I need to find somebody willing to sell it to me, who's willing to finance it in a sense, right? And so I started, the manifestation process I used for that lake property was, it didn't actually even turn into a vision board. I had a folder on my desktop where I was collecting pieces of this lake property in my head that I wanted. I knew I wanted to look out the window from the kitchen and just see water. I knew that I wanted it to have storage for like a little pedal boat to go out on the water with my kids. I knew I wanted at least 2 bedrooms, bathrooms, laundry. So I got really, really clear. So I was collecting all these pieces. And then the thing that kind of gunshotted it for me into action was, I got so clear on, I journaled out how I would feel at this lake property, the things that we would be doing sitting around the fire. So I got so clear on the way I would feel with it. And this property came into our path. And long story short, we had an opportunity to buy it, and the person had tried to sell it. And she's like, I don't know, nobody was seeing my listings. And then all of a sudden, everybody saw it yesterday. So we had like a parade of people come through today. and we have one offer coming in. So we had to make a subject-free offer in one day on this property. And I thought I was going to throw up. I was like, to my husband, I'm like, this is the opportunity. It's everything I wanted. Like, I feel like I have to, like, this is what I want, but we can't. And he looked at me, he said, you are the manifestation girl. This is exactly everything you've asked for. Do you believe you can have it? And I said, yes. So we put in a subject-free offer in a very short time span. And after that, we had to get creative, right? We had to ask different people for financing that weren't options before. We had to, and everything came together. Came together. We got the keys 7 days into the year that we manifested it. And it's the perfect property. It is everything I wanted. And no, the bank said no to me. And the fact that I have this beautiful lake property minutes from my house is still mind-blowing to me. Yes, there is a loan on it, but it is also piecemealed together from this plethora of resources that I didn't even know were going to be available to me until I said yes to that place.
Oh my gosh, great story. Great illustration of how to manifest something for yourself and get creative with it. Just because one door shuts doesn't mean that there aren't plenty of others that you can go knocking on. I love that. And wow, great husband too. Recognizes that in you and just said, hey, don't be saying that. Let's go. I love that because that allows you to open yourself up to all these other possibilities. It is really easy to just say, that didn't work. And then kind of go, okay, forget it. This is what I think is kind of easy and can be a cop out. Well, I guess it's not in the cards for me. I guess that wasn't the right place. It's okay. There's always a silver lining. Something else will pop up instead. Whereas we don't give ourselves enough time to say, wait a minute. If this is what I'm really wanting, desiring, and I'm feeling it, like I can see us vacationing there. I can see my kids out on those paddle boats. I can see, this and getting into that feeling of it again. Then it's just a matter of, okay, how else might this be possible? And asking yourself those questions. What would it look like if? What other opportunities might there be? How might it be possible? And just kind of waiting and seeing, okay. And I love that you said, okay, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to put an ad on Facebook. Like, okay, let me put myself out there and just see what can happen.
Yeah. And the kicker is it did come with a paddle boat. That was one of the, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's got everything, right? But what you just said there, to take the word impossible, break it after the M, take a pause, separate it so you have I'm possible. Yeah. How do you take impossible, sit back and really, do that what if game? What if? What are the opportunities here? How can I do this? And just sit in it and play. There's so many times you can turn impossible into I'm possible.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, I've done that plenty of times in my own life too. And I just, it's crazy when things start to come together and it's like, like you said earlier, it's like kind of like, that maybe it's supposed to be right for you, but then all this stuff happens and you think, well, wait a minute. I know that was right, but I'll question, like, was my intuition off? No way. My intuition's not off. That's not, wait a minute. And then you just kind of go, okay, wait a minute. Maybe I just need to be patient and go, things just sometimes have to get in order. And maybe this is giving me time to get my things in order. Like for you, okay, financing, what are the other ways in which I can figure this out and pull it together? I remember when I was trying to get the house that I'm in now and looking and coming and looking at it. And they said, first of all, it was like, oh my God, this is great, blah, blah, blah. And then I got, it wasn't gone. So somebody showed it to me and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. Later that afternoon, I'm so sorry. We've already got somebody else. And I'm like, and I knew it in my gut. I'm like, there's no way. I know as sure as I am like sitting here right now that I'm in that place. Like I could see everything. And I thought and it was more of a feeling, right? It was more of it just felt right. Like, if you were walking to a place and sometimes you feel like, oh, this is not for me. Like you can just go, it looks great, but something just doesn't feel right. And then you walk into other places and you're like, I'm home. But, something just feels right. And I was just like, there's just no way. Well, I just kind of thought, okay, I'm not going to go out and continue to look because I'm just going to give it a little bit of time and I'm going to get my ducks in a row. And then I had this dream and that I got a call and that the other thing fell through and that it was available. And that's exactly what happened the next day. And, it was like, okay, when those things happen, you have to really, I think, believe that number one, what you want also wants you. Yeah. Because we wouldn't have the desire if we did not have the ability to achieve that desire. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think that it's just dangling there like, sorry, I'm just teasing you with it. I think it's either A, it allows you to think, oh my God, there are other possibilities out there. And I'm playing too small. I'm playing too small. Is it time for me to step up? Or you look at it and you say, okay, I have this here and I truly want it. What am I going to do? What action am I going to take to start going towards that?
Mm-hmm. Well said. I totally wholeheartedly believe that too.
It's just, it's just like there's so much abundance in this world and so many beautiful things in this world that we can all take part of. And we just kind of sit back and we just, I think fall back into that comfort zone. And we have to sometimes just say, wait, I'm going to take a moment. And like you started in the beginning, allow myself to just dream and think about what's possible for me and my life and my family's life as well.
Yeah, your heart knows what you want. Your gut knows what you want. But so often we don't listen to those pulls. Yeah. So how can you get quiet with yourself? Ignore what is happening around you in the world, in your own family unit, in your everything, and just touch in, what do I want?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, playing with that and then breaking it into the steps so that you do take the inspired action. So you can create the life like you did, create a lifestyle that I'm telling you, most people are sitting here going, if I could only. Well, you can.
You can.
It is possible. And you're possible.
Yeah, you are possible. And make it easy for yourself to say yes. Make those steps so bite-sized just to get yourself into action towards what you want. Make it easy so you have to say yes.
Yeah, great point. Great point. Well, Jen, thank you so much for being here today. I so appreciate it and appreciate the conversation and really just seeing the process that you took to retire at age 34, to create this incredible lifestyle and the concrete steps too, not just I threw it on my vision board and stuff and I just got really, clear on it and I thought about it. It was, okay, how can I get creative? How can I get that lake property? The bank's saying no, what else can I do? So I truly appreciate you being here and sharing that. And I will link down below the information about your show, the Manifestation of Money podcast. Thank you.
That sounds so wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on your show. And I think everybody needs to really consider shift or get off the pot. Like, right? I think that's such a playful spin on it. But if we could just own that we are the problem in our current life situation and taking action, getting clear on what we want is the shift we need to just move forward into the life that we want.
So true. So absolutely true. Nothing happens without that action. So thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kim.
Thanks so much for joining me here today. If you want some help achieving your goals, you can grab the Success Bundle link down below or head over to my website, kimkellythompson.com, where I have several free resources to help you. If you like what you've heard today, please consider hitting that subscribe button and join me throughout the week for episodes that will help you make your dreams your reality. I'll be back again soon with another edition of Shift or Get Off the Pot.